Go ahead and record the meeting.
Yes.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, with a great pleasure, I would like to call this meeting to order. It's 2:02 o'clock. This is communication meeting, and this is Mitra Kanani. I'm having the great pleasure and honor to chair this committee. We have, okay, so Ms. Lewis, can you please call the roll, please?
Yes, so we'll have staff do roll call. They have
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and call the roll, Mitra. Mitra Kanani?
Here.
Ebony Lewis?
Here.
Denise Campos?
Here.
Doug Mccauley?
Here.
Nilza Serrano?
Present.
Everyone is here.
Hey, it's a great pleasure for me to announce our joining our new member, Doug Mccauley. He's a great known character by the architecture community in California. Doug, would you like to introduce yourself, in case we don't have
Sure.
individuals who don't know you?
Almost everybody, but I'm Doug Mccauley. I'm real estate commissioner for the state of California, and in the prior life, I was executive officer of the board for 17 years, and thrilled to be able to participate again in any way I can help.
Great. So may I ask the staff to introduce themselves, please?
This is Laura Zuniga, Executive Officer for the board.
Jane Kreidler, Admin Manager for the board.
Drew Liston, Board Liaison.
Okay. I think that's about it. Okay, so first of all, this meeting is being webcast. And I would like to ask public if anyone attending would like to have a comment.
Mitra, if you don't mind, I can speak as a member of public in
Okay.
this context.
All right.
Yeah, I just want, again, welcome old members come back to this newly formed communication committee. Thank you for your work. I want to make a point to recognize a member who's not here, whose role has been replaced by Doug Mccauley. Her name is Rhonda Rosenberg. She has participated in this committee for a few years. She represents AI California, and she's a current president for AI California, but then she's taking on another full-time job. It just become impossible. But this is, I just want for the record that to recognize her commitment and contribution to our board. But this is also a perfect opportunity that introduce our distinguished member back. Dr. Mccauley brings wealth of the knowledge of the history, and I really think it will be a tremendous asset to the committee and lead us together with Mitra and all other members to implementing our new updated strategic plan. I'm so pleased everything worked out perfect. I want to thank everyone, and I will be quiet listening for 1 hour, and I will be logged off at 3 o'clock. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tian. I appreciate your presence as always. I would like, I'm not sure if we do have any public member to comment for any comment at this time.
This is the moderator. We do have 2 members of the public logged into the meeting. So if anyone would like to make a comment, you can look for the Q&A icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. And then in the text box, type the word comment and click send. The other option is you may raise your hand. And if you are a call-in user, you can use *3 to raise your hand. And then each person will be recognized in the order their comment was received. Does anyone have a public comment on anything that is not on the agenda? I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close up the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes. We are having January 25th, 2022 for.
So moved, Nilsa Serrano.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Okay, great. Shall we vote, please?
Yeah, I could go ahead and call that. Mitra Kanani,
Yes.
Ebony Lewis,
Aye.
Denise Campos,
Aye.
Doug Mccauley,
Abstain.
okay, and Nilsa Serrano.
Abstain.
Okay, so
3, 2 abstains.
2 abstains, 3 yeses.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so at this time, hello?
As a point of, my apologies, as a point of order, I do believe you are asked to take public comment on the minutes, even though there might not be any. We do still need to go out for public comment.
Oh, yes.
Is that all right?
Yes, please.
All right. So if any member of the public has a comment on the minutes, you are encouraged to either raise your hand using the hand icon or look for the Q&A icon in the bottom right of your WebEx screen and type the word comment in the text box, click send. If you are a call-in user and you have a comment on the minutes, you can use *3 to raise your hand.
Okay.
And there is no request for comment.
no
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time we are moving to the item E, a discussion of 2022-2024 strategic plan objectives. When this is my second time for chairing this committee, I would like to mention that in my first session, I had a very broad vision about the mission of this committee. And when during this past few months, thinking about, which we stayed very inactive about the goals and missions of this committee, I would like to mention that as much as I appreciate the multilateral broad vision of this committee, however, I see it as very broad and hard to achieve to a great extent based on the means that we have to our.
She just rose.
Yes, it looks like there's a connection issue. There she's back.
I would like to mention that basically the 3 objectives would help us to focus, to narrow down on.
You're muted.
Mitra.
Okay, am I mute now? No.
You've been breaking in and out.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. So what I was trying to say that rather than having 8 goals that it goes to all directions as far as the achievability of the goals, I would like to see that we are narrowing it down to maybe 3 goals that for the remaining time of this year we are able to achieve it. So I don't know if there's any comments related to what I'm proposing at this juncture, I would like to entertain that. Also, if it's agreeable, a discussion for the remaining time of the session on which goals we would like to focus on. Any comments? Doug, as a new member, I would like to, this was, I think, one of your comments as well when we discussed. Do you have anything to add to this?
I mean, it's really a question for the veterans on the committee, but you know, to really go deep on some of these initiatives, it might be best to have a manageable number and go deeper as opposed to hitting them on a more de minimis level. So that would be my thought, but I defer to the group. I'm not familiar with the recent history of the committee or the board's desires. So again, defer to the group.
Okay, let's open it to the rest of the team.
Well, I think that when these actions were generated, we had also made the request that the committee meet more often in order to really think through to how might we be able to achieve some of these objectives. And this plan is based on over a 2-year period. And I would even think that it would be hard for us to accomplish even 2 to 3 of them this year, seeing that we haven't had a meeting since our last meeting. So we need to really think through and discuss how often does this committee need to meet in order to meet any of these goals within the next 2 years. Denise.
Okay.
Yeah, just to echo what Commissioner Lewis just said, I was chairing this committee for years prior, and we would only meet once a year. And I think in recent times, there's been a disconnect between what the board would like to happen and what the commission did, because the majority of the members were non-commissioners. So there was just a disconnect in between the goals and what was realistic with meeting once a year. So in the past, I've asked to meet more often and for us to really focus on certain items that we can move forward with in communications, whether it was like earned media, social media, a newsletter that would have less content and be more user-friendly and so forth.
Okay. Any more thoughts?
This is Neil Cicerano. Many years ago, we had talked about the possibility of partnering up with DCA, because DCA has all the elements we need to do newsletters, do videos. And I don't know where that ended up. And if it ever got, if that partnership was ever ratified.
I think there was some work done with DCA. I see that Jane has her hand up. She could probably comment more to that. But there was some partnership at one point with one of the staff members that did PR for the agency. I think there was one story on hiring architects after the fires in Paradise, California.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we have actually produced 2 videos since the beginning of the year with DCA, and we also have they are doing our newsletters now. We tried to get we did a different format. We're still working on the format of the newsletter, but they are also we're coordinating our newsletter with them, and we have more videos in the works.
Okay.
To also create with DCA. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I personally was not aware of these videos and publications. This is very interesting because I think personally that the goals, that items from 1 through 8, some of them can be achieved by using our publications, any kind of video or newspaper that can allow basically the goals to be conveyed to the public. So based on the description of our committee goals, increase public and professional awareness of the board's mission, activities, and services. I think what we have can be used in a more efficient way. Now, when I was reviewing these missions personally, I thought some of them can be combined together. Certain like outreach plan to educate licensees and candidates on information needed to acquire and maintain a license. This is something that through our videos and other publications can be achieved rather than, and at the same time, we have our professional committee has come up with certain new requirements. Are these going to be available? How this is going to be conveyed to the public and to the licensees to educate them further as to what the changes have occurred. Developing communication or basically outreach plan for academic and private institutions. I remember when I was engaged with the school, we had maybe once a year that, in fact, a couple of times, Doug, you came to our school and you were very, very effective about raising awareness as to the requirement for becoming licensed. And this was sometimes combined with NCARB coming to the school. So going again, starting, I'm not sure how during this remaining time of the year we can do that, but going to the schools, to community colleges, particularly that those are more engaged or focused on becoming licensed. This is something that, you know, I personally can pursue maybe 2 or 3 community colleges in San Diego to do that, or if some of us put that on our agenda for the remaining time of this year in the fall semester for the schools to go to in our local communities communities to basically raise awareness among students. And of course, publicize architects from diverse backgrounds to promote inclusion. I'm not sure, this is a very broad plan of action, but how I'm very open to any suggestions how we can do that. I'm not sure about SB 9, how, if there's any thoughts related to that, that would be very interesting. I personally am not sure how we can pursue that.
Mitra, if you don't mind, this is Laura. Can I interject
Yes.
for just one moment? Sure.
Sure.
So just on a couple of the comments from previously. So we do have a goal of each committee meeting twice a year. And so really the idea is for the committee to determine the priorities for the objectives and how you want to proceed with them and maybe give staff direction on how to implement them. And Jane, I think, is going to give an update on where staff is at with these objectives. So it might be helpful for the committee to hear that, and it might help you determine how you want the rest of the priorities to,
Sure.
you know,
No, basically,
set the
we're
priorities
done
from
with
there.
that regard.
And then I think Tian also wants to speak, and then we have, I think Niels has her hand up as well.
I'm not
Thank you.
seeing it. Okay. Tian?
I wasn't certain the rules. I thought the president is invited or should attending the meeting. So I'm not sure how often I should participate, but I think we should list the, I don't know if the slides has these objectives. And I was thinking about saying same thing as Laura had mentioned, maybe have a staff quickly summarize the objectives, and then the team that can decide is this proper approach, take 2 to 3 objectives as Mitra mentioned as a focus of this year's deliveries. But I don't know if the slides has that objectives. If not, I guess we have maybe just verbally have a staff go through those.
Yes, please. Yeah, I'm very much eager to hear about that.
We'll see if we can get those displayed. They are in the last page of the packet.
I'd like to hear from staff to see where where they're at in terms of the objectives. I think that's a more appropriate way to start so that we know where we're at this point and we can have a baseline. Right now, we're not.
Okay, I can give that to you. So after the board or the committee meeting in January, when Denise mentioned which objectives that she thought would be pretty much solely handled by board staff, and then with the input, obviously, of the committee, we went ahead and started working. So we are, we've worked on some of them, but nothing, is completed, but I will tell you where we are. So if we go to 3.1, which is resume regular communication with AIA, our EO Laura is doing that. So that one is good. The developing the outreach plan, as Mitra mentioned, to educate licensees and candidates. We have developed a draft of that. It's still in the draft phase, but we have started it. 3.3, develop communication regarding the requirements of SB 9. That's also in draft. 3.4, develop an outreach plan for academic and private institutions. That is...
Jane, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. Can I ask the WebEx to go to page, to the actual page of the points that Jane is talking about so that we can all see them, please? And I think it's the last page on the deck. Thank you.
One moment, certainly, as I am being provided with the material, and I will go ahead and load that one right now.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Give you a minute. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And I understand this is going to be the last page of the meeting packet. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, there it is.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so 3.4, developing an outreach plan for academic and private institutions. We have it sort of scheduled to begin that process towards the end of the year. And Mitra, you brought up what we were thinking, which is, we can use the videos and we can use a lot of different things to reach the institutions along with licensees, candidates, and the public. So we are open and willing to do all types of outreach to do that.
May I interrupt you at this time?
Sure.
I appreciate to mention something. This is coming basically with a lot of opportunities for not licensed individuals working in California at this juncture. There's a lot of this issue going on that they come to me, particularly those who are students, still students, and they are engaged in practice, and they are doing certain things that they have been finding themselves into violating the law without even knowing it. And some of them have been contacted by the board, by CAP. So it's very important that they know before getting engaged in actions that is going to hunt them, basically putting them in violation. They be aware as to where to find those information and making it more and more accessible to public, to those who are still not licensed. It helps not everyone is engaged in deliberate violation. Some of them get into that without even knowing what they are doing. So this, I don't know how. I personally have thought about it in several occasions when they have approached me and have sought advice. that how is it possible to make them aware before they're engaged in that kind of situation. I'm open to any suggestions that how you can raise awareness, particularly to this group of future architects, hopefully, that they are engaged in practice right now. And majority of them are students and very naive, and they don't know what they are doing. Where they can be, how they can be directed, going to schools, sending messages to the public that in some way, some fashion and form is going to reach to them. So this outreach has to be specially planned. That's my thought. This can also be to certain licensees also that they don't know what they are doing. They're still not aware of the law exactly.
So thank you. Thank you for saying that, because we also, part of the plan, and like I said, it's in draft, but part of the plan is to do candidate and licensing webinars, and where people can call in. If you're a student, you can call in, but we are open to all different ideas from everyone, of course. But that is part of that's on the draft.
Great.
Okay. So let's see here. 3.5, publicize architects from diverse backgrounds. So we would love to get more input with regard to architects from diverse backgrounds. We did publicize some in February for Black History Month. I think we did 2 or 3 architects. We would like to highlight them on social media and in our newsletter. So that's ongoing. 3.6, create social media posts, educating licensees on violations to increase compliance. Certainly, we can do that. That is, let's see where reach with. Let me see where we are with that one. So we would like to get that started like around the end of the year. And then, Anne, could you move that up, the screen up, or can we see it? Maybe I need to move my screen up. I guess I need to move my screen up. Sorry, Anne. Okay.
Yes, that's okay. Each viewer can scroll up and down a page on their own.
Right. Okay. And then 3.7, survey higher educational institutions. That, we haven't started that yet. 3.8, provide information in multiple languages to increase accessibility. So the videos that we have done, we've done in English and Spanish. We would continue to do that. And that's where we are with 3.8. So that's what staff has completed or has started so far.
Great. All right. So let's go to the top of the list, the 3.1, regular communication with American Institute of Architects. How in the past, how this was done, how is it that we think that we can improve it? I'm seeing always some tension involved in this direction. So is there any thought related to regular communication with American Institute of Architects?
If I could just interject here, it's Nilsa Serrano. Thank you, Mitra. I think that's just ongoing. The AIA attends most of our meetings and they understand what is happening. Actually, they're probably more entrenched on what our legislatures and the governor's administration is doing when it comes to architecture and laws that are coming up and measures and propositions and whatever. So I think that relationship is fine. What we do need to tap them for is how do we get them to start promoting our messages so that we can deliver, so that we can create a bigger social platform. So we want them to promote us. And I see that Laura has her hand up.
Yeah, just to add on to this one. So we did, Chan and I met with the AI Executive Committee in July, I believe, when we attended their meeting, which was really good. We had like an hour discussion with them and kind of just went over some, general things the board's working on. We heard that areas they're interested in partnering on. They offered to partner definitely on outreach, communications, and some other items. So we're kind of drafting an understanding with AIA California as to how we can work with them going forward. Really looking at increasing the sharing of information and where we have overlap. So between what the board's doing that would impact AIA, and then vice versa, finding out from them, what initiatives they have, and where it would impact the board or licensees, and how we can improve communications to licensees and getting relevant information out to them. So I think we have good progress on this one.
Yeah, very good. Nielsa, you mentioned that bilateral communication is very important. This is the goal of this committee, and Laura and I take the first step. The committee will continue this work. We try to institutionalize this effort by perhaps create MOUs between the two organizations. More information can be bring back by Laura to the committee maybe during next meeting. So very good point. This is good. This item is moving forward. I just want to suggest again, is the committee interested to look at the pickup 2 to 3 objectives at some point after staff reports, the progress made on these 8 objectives?
Yeah. Since you mentioned about AIA relationship, I would like to ask you if you can explain to us, Tian, more about this climate action issue that became something that caused a little bit problem for the CAB related to implementation of that in our goals. Do you have anything to add to this to clarify what's the situation right now related to this specific matter?
I want to very brief update because this is more of PQC's committee's responsibility. But the quick update is we are on the same page in general, and we want to broaden the scope of definition in terms of educational topics for net zero carbon, and California AIA has no objection to it. And in fact, they are now planning on offering classes that are broader than they call the operating based net zero carbon classes. So we're on the same page in general. Okay.
Oh, okay, great. Great to know that. All right, so getting to the specific, more focused items, let's say, in choosing 3 items that we can focus for the rest of the year on that, and it's manageable enough to be able to do that. I'm open to any suggestions, any comments, choices, please. By the way, I don't see any raised hand. If I ignore them, I'm sorry.
Laura has a hand.
Because I'm not having any raised hand in my screen. I don't know what's going on with mine.
I put mine down, sorry, and then Jane has hers up, but I think it's been up for a little while, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I need to put it down.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, but now Nielsa has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to kind of bring to the table, we need to develop content that is going to be consumer needed and consumer wanted, because what is going to drive us to get a bigger footprint in our social media and all of our communications. So the governor's office or the administration or the state of California adopted SB 9, which everybody's excited about and wants to implement in their homes. And I think if we create a small video that will explain what that means, whether it's from whoever helped develop this SB 9, or we do it internally, maybe somebody from the board or somebody from the staff, I think that would be completely valuable, and we can post it on social media, on Twitter, and send it out as a video. Let's face it, people don't have time to read a 10-page document or a newsletter that is going to drag on. So if we do small segments, I think we'll get a better following. And in terms of talking to students that are going to school, they're going to feel the same way. They don't want, you got to talk to them where they're at. And where are they? They're on social media, they're on Snapchat, they're on Twitter, they're not even on Facebook. I don't even think they're on Instagram anymore. So they are on different platforms, and that's how we're going to be able to get that message out. And I don't want to monopolize the meeting, but I just think that we can do a whole lot more if we just figure out a good working relationship with DCA and use their resources. Thank you.
Well, with regards to, I appreciate everything you mentioned, Nilza. With regards to SB 9, I agree that there are tons of information that are available, and it's hard to follow them. However, as far as the effective aspects of what we would like to do to make it efficient for the public, I'm not sure how this is doable with respect to, I'm not, like for instance, in San Diego, that there's almost every 2 weeks, there's a new information that is out here related to this specific issue, and things are changing. Every 2, 3, 4 weeks, something related to this matter is changing. How we can make it efficient for the public in a broader scope of that, I'm not sure. I'm open to suggestions.
Thank you, Mitra. I think Doug has his hand up, and then I'll go after Doug.
Yes. I do. Thank you.
I don't.
So at first blush, I saw the point on SB 9, and my thought reverted back to where I was last, Department of Housing. I thought, oh, HCD's kind of got that covered. But then thinking about it more deeply, I mean, the beauty of architecture is it intersects with so many different facets of our society, and housing policy clearly is a critical space in which architecture makes a difference, obviously. So there are opportunities like this, whether it's SB 9 or accessory dwelling units or water conservation, where the board really has a good opportunity not to create its own content necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the board's not the policy expert on zoning issues, for example, but there are state partners who are. And so there's probably a way to connect with HCD, for example, on ADUs or whatever, and say, hey, we want to do something really basic to help educate the public, including our traditional consumers. Can you help us do that? And then secondly, also in going through them, I saw something that kind of cross connects. So publicizing architects from diverse backgrounds. And I'm sure you guys are already doing that. I mean, I think back to 10 years ago, an outside entity did a brochure for us, and it was as male and pale as could be. And I'm like, my reaction was, we can't use this, come on. And so really, we want to be using that equity lens on everything we're doing to ensure that we've got a California that's available to everybody, and we've all got opportunities to succeed. And so that item really permeates through everything I would imagine the board wants to be doing. So you want to track the work in that space, but I also don't know that it needs to be a separate objective. It needs to be something that's a foundational concern in everything that we're doing.
Great thought, Doug.
Can I speak a little bit more to that? I know it should be foundational in everything that we're doing, and I caution that sometimes if you don't call things out, it may slip through the cracks. You know, this board and committee is constantly turning, and so we just want to keep it at the forefront of what needs to happen in everything that we're doing. I mean, Denise and I last year were asking for documents to be translated in another language, and that you would think would be the standard, because that has to be, I think by law, you have to do that, you know, even in the healthcare industry, like you always have to have that available. So I just want to make sure that we're calling out things that need to happen, even though I know that it should be foundational.
It's, to piggyback on that, yeah, it's almost an extension of all of these objectives. So we're doing X, and it advances equity by doing Y.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is some of objective, its nature and the deliverable means for delivering them so close could be naturally grouped together as a priority for this year. For example, 3.A is something that Albany mentioned, and so much to do with our social media, right? When we want multiple language, I assume is on our website. Maybe we can start from social media if the website is too big of a task. And then we have SB9, well, barely fit that, but could potentially do. And then 3.5 is certainly related. Maybe all the, social media and website related effort could be one group and deliver them as a priority for this year. Just a suggestion.
Okay. Now, with regards to narrowing down to the 3 items, let's focus on these. Outreach for academic and private institutions, and outreach for licensees. Do you think this is doable for this? We can combine them somehow, some way?
Hi, Mitra. It's Nilsa again, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I tend to have a little bit more institutional kind of background on
Yes, please, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. We at the board level used to separate the universities and teaching institutions, and we would communicate with them on a regular basis and report back every time we met. I don't know where that ended up because we're not doing it anymore, and I think that's the way we take care of that particular issue.
Nilsa, can I clarify that? Because I have memories of that very well.
Okay.
And this issue was halted during the pandemic, that things when institutions went online. So this didn't happen practically. Although I think I was not part of the board at that time, but I think if this was still on the plan, could have happened in a more efficient way, even being online. So now the institutions have gone back to face-to-face teaching. I think we can resume those kind of exposures and communication outreach to them. As I was mentioning that each one of us undertaking for the locality that we are engaged in, I think that's doable. But I'm in general, I think we need to focus on something that is more regular.
I'd like to circle back with what Nilsa was saying, is that we stopped doing that way before the pandemic. And the reason why we stopped doing it is because of the low response rates that we were having from those universities that we were liaisons to. And so it was brought to this committee for us to think through a different approach where we still can connect and engage with those universities and still have those relationships, but the approach that we were doing was not working. And I would pass it back to Nilsa to see if she had anything else to add.
Sorry, Nilsa, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I think I had okay communication with some of the schools I was talking to, but I think because it was Cerritos and another one, they were just desperate to get the information out to us that their students were not getting into graduate programs because there was no slots for the student, which is another issue that we'll have to address at the board level. But that's why I stopped talking to them, because I felt like there was nothing I could do for them at the moment. But they responded quite well to me. So if we can maybe explore it, and now because everybody's used to doing Zooms, it might be easier to connect with them again.
Yeah, but I just want put it in context. When we put the 3.4 into strategic plan, is exactly reflect what you and Albany mentioned. We had experienced successful, somewhat not successful other times we overreach or too many institutions. If you remember, we want this committee give a new direction, a modified direction. And I think outreach is required. It's really because we are building, and we have lots of architecture programs, and we're building them more than half, maybe perhaps go to be the architect. So this ongoing dialogue is important. We just need this committee shape, focus, and objectives, and maybe even scope how this 3.4 should be defined and implemented. Maybe that's a priority. Maybe one of your priority. How often, what is the format? I remember one time some members suggest maybe staff takes some of this outreach and the board member takes some. All these conversations I recall, but I think we need to have this committee help define 3.4. How do we deliver it?
I'm sorry that I'm a little bit not in tune, or I should say, knowledgeable about what you mean related to successes of these outreach plans. What do we expect from our attempt to reach the institutions? What is our expectation, and how much of that is achieved or not achieved? I'm not so sure about when you say that it was not successful. Can you enlighten me about that, please?
I think Doug has his hand up.
Yes, please. I don't see any hands, so sorry.
I'll defer to Laura on that question on liaison program history. My only thing was, I think the board and staff probably do a good job of getting out there to the schools. The pandemic is, the dynamic we're all still contending with, but it creates that advantage that we're all getting good at WebEx and Zoom and all that. So there's an opportunity to efficiently connect with the schools, do brown bag lunches virtually or what have you. But the challenge always, I think historically, has been knowing what the local AI components are doing, knowing if the big firms are going to have a hiring day at the school. So just the seemingly simple function of coalescing all that information on who's going where, when, I think would be really valuable.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I only see Doug's hand still raised. Any other hands?
Yes, I think one of the approaches that I felt was probably most helpful is when we were rotating our meetings on campus. Mm-hmm. And when we are able to go back in person, I think that is the best way and most powerful way where we were not only able to connect with the deans and leaders of the universities, but the students were also able to see who we were and that we exist on campus. It was also felt very meaningful when the students came and shared what they were working on. And that was a very unique experience. And so if we can, once we go back in person, I think that would be a recommendation that I would have in setting the standard for that.
Okay.
So if I can just chime in on the meeting locations. Ebony, I definitely agree with you that in terms of when the board meets at the different campuses, that was a great opportunity to hear from the different schools, particularly from the students, and see what they're working on. While we still have the option to meet remotely, it's been a bit of a challenge. We tried to get the September board meeting with the hybrid format, and we couldn't really make that work. But definitely that is the plan once we're back to meeting in person to again, alternate between the schools. I did just want to mention on this topic of outreach to the schools. NCARB does visits to the schools, and they invite the board to participate, as well as AIA and the licensing advisors. And so that's also a good way that staff participate in meeting directly with the students and with the programs. So we've done those virtually during the pandemic, and actually the participation is really good, probably better in some cases than it has been with the in-person sessions. So it's something we'll continue to do.
I would like to also recommend, so I remember attending an NCARB meeting when they went, I think maybe USC, because it was down the street from
USC.
And I would recommend letting the board know when they are here and doing those visits. So if we're able to attend, it would be a great opportunity for them to see us and meet us as well.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm still thinking that what is it that CAB can do above and beyond what NCARB have been doing throughout the years, and they have been very, very organized in that matter. You know, being in the school for years, I have seen them coming 1 or 2 times a year, and they have been very, very efficient in what they are conveying to students. So my thought is still, you know, engaged in finding what CAB can do above and beyond that. How about California Architect Board, along with NCARB visits, to make one visit uh, to all the schools or some of the schools that are arranged by them for that year, that we also be engaged in their meeting with the students, that to make that more efficient for the students. Because in combination is what I know for this is happening for IPAL programs, and that's what I was doing throughout the past 5-6 years with the school that I was engaged in, and it was very efficient because students are very much aware as to what's laid out for them for their path to licensure. And but this is not happening for non-IPAL programs. So this is what we can see for those schools that are not part of the IPAL program, and NCARB is not so much focusing on them. We be the one to raise awareness in those schools, and community colleges are obviously fall in that category. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I had my hand up. I think we really need to go back to the strategic plan that the board laid out, and not go off into really specific micromanaged items for communication staff. Because really the goal, there's wonderful things that are happening, that AIA is doing outreach, that NCARB is doing outreach, but is that really our role? I mean, the California Architects Board is a policy-making entity to look out for the consumer and for the public and to regulate the profession. So I focus back on the big picture of like, are we serving the greater purpose when we're having these conversations? And are we really following the guidelines that the board already set as strategic plans? I agree with Commissioner Lewis about having visits with the schools. That was really, I think, helpful both ways for visibility of the board and for the students. But I also just keep in mind that everyone here are very busy people. So is it realistic to expect professionals that are going to be managing these relationships with any school? I don't think that's realistic. We've tried it before, and I don't think it really produced the results we would have liked.
Okay. So with that said, I think we are going to come back next time with the same issue that we're going to say, okay, everybody is busy and everybody is having things to do, that this is falling at the back of the burner for us. If we want to have the goals of the communication committee based on the items that is on our agenda and focus based on the focused items that we are selecting, I think we need to stay committed to it. How we can do that, that's what we need to decide. What is the best approach in doing this? What is it about the online opportunities that we have these days? That's something that maybe we can take advantage of. I'm seeing that personally in my teaching, I realized at the beginning I had problem with the teaching online, and then I realized it brings me more opportunities for bringing more people into this. How about for outreach issue for the next few months, we have one summit. This is just a thought that I've been developing in my mind that maybe one summit to invite all the schools and to convey the message that we would like to give them as to what all of the do's and don'ts and information that we would like to convey to the schools. This can be only for the schools, that all the community colleges of California, all the schools that are offering architecture program in California are being invited to it. Do you think this is a problem if we focus on for the next few months to work on? I don't know. I personally think that maybe it's doable. Rather than going door to every school, we take advantage of that this online opportunity that exists, and this I think is more doable to bring much larger audience into it.
I have a question, Nelsa Serrano. Can Laura, the architect academic portion of our population, do they have like a, I don't know, a convention? Do they have a program? Do they have a where they get together and they discuss what's going on in architecture and
Yes,
and
they do.
academic?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so instead of us going all over the place, why don't we go to one of those and talk to them as a whole in one time?
We can do that. Association Collegiate Schools of Architecture, ACSA, has annual meeting, has administrative meeting. They have 2-3 large gatherings per year that if we want, like for the fall, which is administrative conference, and this is for deans and directors of the school. Maybe it's a little bit too late. They have already have the agenda, or maybe we can squeeze ourselves into it. But that's in October. And the next one for the annual meeting is in March usually, and sometimes in March, mid-March or third week of the March. And this is an opportunity for us to ask for a session for inviting all of the architecture programs. But is this what we want to do for the entire nation? I don't think so. Are we supposed, if we want to focus on California?
I think it doesn't matter if other people listen from other parts of the country, because maybe they might learn from us and what we're offering so that they can take to their respective schools. Just because the schools are in another state doesn't mean that our California students are not going to those schools, because our California students are going to go to any school that's going to accept them because they want to get their licensure, and they may come back to California. The idea is just to get the information out so that we can have a dialogue between CAB and the academic schools.
Yes.
So however we need to do it, whatever system we need to use, instead of us trying to go to every single school, maybe we go to one where they're all at, and then we get the mission. And maybe we could try to get in October, like you mentioned, and then again in March.
Yes.
I'd also just add, AIA California does an education summit, which I think is annually, and they invite the board to participate. And I've attended pre-pandemic, I attended in person, and I've done it virtually. So that might be another forum or opportunity where they've had representatives from the California schools, could also, decide what messages we want to provide there and provide materials and information at that type of meeting.
Yeah, that is doable. We have to plan ahead of time, few months ahead of time for all of these. But it's doable. I think it's effective. And it goes to a broader audience rather than just one school or one group of students or faculty members.
Right. I think it'll be easier for us to get the information out that way, and then get more buy-in from the schools. And we could just do this ongoing every year until we get the message out over and over and over.
Yeah, and going with the same manner, we can go for the AIA convention. In the AIA convention, there are there are opportunities for each collateral to have their own session. If you go ahead of time and put it on their agenda, it's doable. And now that, again, we can make it online and open to whoever would like to join outside of that locality that we are in, a lot of people can join. All of these need a plan of action ahead of time, a few months ahead of time. And majority of them, they would like to see your agenda, the content of what you are offering to public, to the group of audience that you're addressing ahead of the time. And you have to have it documented and submitted to them. I was part of the planning programming for ACSA for a duration, and I was on the AIA Education Committee also for a duration doing this. So, for CEU, some of them even attach CEU, continuing education unit to them for both, for ACSA and for AIA. Okay, any more thoughts? Doug?
Hi, it's Nils again. Sorry. Is there, how can, Laura, how can we connect with DCA and their production department?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jane can handle that. She works with them.
Okay, great. So if I could just recap my thoughts, just because I've been taking notes as we're going. I think on 3.1, it's an ongoing process and it'll just keep going on and on and on forever. I'd like to explore the possibility of developing a segment, 2 or 3 little 2-minute, 1-minute segments on 3.2. Also on SB9, on the development of outreach for academic, that's ongoing. And then we're going to try to hopefully use forums, conventions, AIA conventions, and then what Mitra said that I wasn't fast enough to type when you said what it was. I was trying my best to type.
ACSA. That was ACSA.
Okay, great. And then I would also like to explore the possibility of us or staff creating a year-long calendar of what is going on in the nation. Like, for instance, what is January? When is Black History Month? When is Latino History Month? When is Asian History Month? When is LGBT History Month? When is Immigrant History Month? And then we can just create a year-long calendar that we can then just focus on posting on our social media, and then creating the newsletter that will be themed for that specific month. And then also I talked to Laura because I was at a dinner and somebody said, "Hi, have you ever highlighted?" And then Julia Morgan, the first woman architect that got her license in the state of California. And we should highlight her and her celebration during Women's History Month, because that's pretty awesome. And she's the one that I think she created the Hertz Castle and a couple of other things when nobody else would hire her. But then I guess the war came and they needed somebody to help build. And she was the only woman she was the first woman to graduate from architect school and the first woman to get a license in California, which is pretty awesome.
Okay, Julia Morgan. Okay. All right.
That's all I have. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. So, Laura, I'm asking if I don't have anything on my agenda more than what we discussed. And what do you think of any?
I think we got some good direction today. If any of the members want to add anything to the list that Nielsa provided, you can do that now or follow up with us separately. And I think that Jane, I think, has been sending out, I don't know how often we're doing it, but we'll continue to send out communications committee updates to let you know what's happening in between the meetings.
Yes. Yeah. We need more meetings, definitely. That's
Yeah.
That's
And I really like the idea of the calendar that Niels has suggested. It's bigger than the type
Yeah.
of calendar we were thinking, but I really like that because it'll give us a lot of good ideas for social media. So that's great.
okay. So with that said, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
I do believe that we are obligated to open for public comment.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And this is the moderator, and we've opened for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, you can look for the Q&A icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And thank you for your patience. I do not see any requests for public comment, so we can close that up and adjourn if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your participation. It was an honor and great pleasure to be with you today. And I'm very excited of Doug joining us. Thank you and hopefully we're gonna meet sooner this time rather than a few months gap in between. And I really appreciate Nilsa's comments. I think we need to pursue that. And with that said, let's adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.